Chapter 3.1 Adaptations of Organism. So, class A, first of all, I'd like to welcome you back to learning. Welcome back you to school. So, things are going to be slightly different right now. So, as you have noticed, the Malaysian government has actually announced a movement control order, and that causes a lot of school has to be closed down, and learning is going to be slightly different. So bear with me, class. So we are going to journey through this together, and we're going to conduct class in a much more different way. So today we are looking at chapter 3.1 Adaptations of Organisms. So class, feel free to pause whenever it's needed throughout the whole lesson. So by pausing it, you could actually take down the notes. Okay, so you know how class are being conducted normally in school. So I'll be going through the slides, and you're going to copy down a few notes. So let us begin. So what will we be learning today? So we are learning to describe the places where organisms live. We are learning to use sampling to research the types of organisms in an area. We are also learning to describe how organisms are adapted to where they live. So class, at this point, I would like you to take down the word in your science notebook. So you can actually pause the video right now and copy it down. Okay, let us resume. So before that, we're going to do a few recap on chapter 2.4. So in chapter 2.4, we were learning on useful microorganisms. So microorganisms are pretty useful, especially when it comes to food manufacturing. So on the picture on this side, you could actually see there's kimchi and cheese, yogurt, and vinegar. They are made using a bacteria. And on the next slide, this slide we have food made using fungi. We have bread. We have a alcoholic drinks. Alcohol, not the alcohol that you use to sanitize your hand. Alright, that's a different alcohol. And then of course we have this marmite here. So these are made using yeast extract, and this white stuff. Can you remember what is it? This is called a tempeh. Alright, so what is a habitat? So a habitat is the location or place within the ecosystem where an organism lives. So an organism's habitat provides it with the appropriate environmental conditions, such as light intensity and temperature, and essential resources such as food, water, oxygen, and shelter. So what resources? Resources refers to things that is needed or used by an organisms to live. So class, you can actually pause the video right now to take down these notes. And next, the ecosystem and environment. So ecosystems are made up of living things, or sometimes we call it biotic factors, right? So these are the living things here, right? And the non-living things, or sometimes we call it the physical factors or abiotic factors that interact with each other in an environment. So what is an environment? An environment refers to all the other organisms and physical factors around an organism. All right. So let's say, for example, so this is the bunny here. You can see the environment. It refers to all other organisms and the physical factors around it. So when we say an ecosystem, ecosystem refers to the whole picture here that you're seeing it right now. Okay, clear, class? And next, so a group of organisms of the same species, right? The same species is called a population. Sorry, population, right? So you see the D here, this animal here. So animal of the same type, of the same species, we call them a population. And all the different populations living in the same place at the same time are called a community. So we look at this diagram here, community. So there is a population of the deers, population of the zebras, and this, I believe, a population of lions, populations of buffaloes, right? And so these are called community. So then, of course, the biotic components of ecosystems contains all of these communities of organisms. So different communities actually made up one ecosystem. Okay. Next. So to discover what lives in a habitat, scientists examine small parts of it. So often scientists, they take samples. They take samples to actually study an organisms in a habitat. So the word sampling, the word here sampling, it means the selection of subjects included in a study. Why do we do sampling? So you can see there are so many populations out there. There's so many things out there, and if we were to actually study everything one by one, it would take forever to finish a study. So in order to study much more effectively, so scientists collect sample. That's why we call this process as sampling. So organisms can be collected using a variety of methods, such as pitfall traps, pouters, and nets. So these are a few methods that scientists use to actually collect samples in a habitat. First of all is the pitfall trap. So what's a pitfall trap? Pitfall trap is actually a container buried in the ground. It's often used to sample small invertebrates living on the ground, such as beetles, spiders, and slugs. So this is actually an image of a pooter. So to break it down, so you can see there is actually a gap here, right? So normally bugs will actually fall into here, and then they will collect the samples, right? This is actually a cup. They will collect samples. And all right, another method for scientists to collect sample is by using pouters. So what are pouters? So pouters is actually a small jar used for collecting insects. So it's something that looks like this. So you see this young man here. He's actually sucking things into the pooter. So a pooter has two tubes. One goes into your mouth, right? This part here goes into your mouth, and so that you can actually apply suction, and the other goes over the insect so that it is sucked into the jar. All right. So when this young man is actually sucking through this straw, so you actually draw the air, right? So actually, you actually suck this little insect here into the pooter. Okay. And another method for scientists to collect sample is by using nets. So nets, they are actually useful for collecting flying insects, such as butterflies and moths, by sweeping through long grass or leaves. So you can look at a picture here. This guy is actually sweeping through the leaves to collect some samples. So actually trying to collect the insects in it. Or sometimes scientists use nets to catch aquatic organisms. So especially when let's say there's a lake of a lake that has a few aquatic organisms, they will actually collect samples by sweeping through the lake. So in this slide here, this photo here is actually called a quadrat. So what's a quadrat? So a quadrat is actually a square frame. So you notice here is actually a square frame that is used to take samples in the habitat. It is often used to sample plants. Alright, so in our next lesson, we'll be going to look into adaptations. So this is the first part of chapter 3.1. So we have learned so far. We've learned on habitats and how do we sample organisms in a habitat. So please refer to the next recording for adaptations of organisms. So that's it for now.